1. It seems quite a few people have similar stories, so here's mine and how I handled it. I was probably a bit of a butthead at the end of it all. I never wanted to be a babysitter, but somehow that's what I always end up being at every family gathering. It didn't matter if I barely knew the kids or their parents, they would always find a way to dump them on me and disappear. It started when I was 14 and continued until I was in my 30s. I had moved away from my extended family when I was 5, so I didn't see them very often. But whenever there was a birthday, a wedding, or a holiday, they would invite me and my parents to join them, and that's when the trouble began. The first time it happened, I was sitting at a table with my cousin and his wife, who had just had a baby. They seemed nice enough, but as soon as they finished their food, they handed me the baby and said they were going to get some drinks. They didn't ask me if I wanted to hold him or if I knew how to take care of him. They just assumed I would be happy to do it. I wasn't. I had never held a baby before, and I had no idea what to do with him. He was tiny and fragile and smelled like milk and diapers. He started crying after a few minutes, and I panicked. I tried to rock him, to sing to him, and to make funny faces at him. Nothing worked. He just cried louder and louder, attracting the attention of everyone in the room. I looked around for his parents, hoping they would come back and rescue me, but they were nowhere to be seen. They had left me alone with their child without a word of explanation or apology. How could they do this to me? This happened many times over the years until I had enough. The last time it happened, when I was now in my 30s, at a party and gathering with my husband's family. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Once again, parents came over to introduce themselves and left their baby with me, even though I clearly told them that I was uncomfortable with them doing so. But it would only be for a minute. 10 minutes pass, 30 minutes pass. As the hour mark approaches and the baby is getting very fussy, I got up from the table, carrying the baby with me, and walked towards the bar where I had last seen them. I pushed my way through the crowd of people, ignoring their stares and comments. I finally spotted them, laughing and chatting with some other relatives with their glasses of wine in hand. They looked relaxed and happy, oblivious to my plight. I marched up to them and thrust the baby into their arms. "Here," I said, "take your kid back." They looked at me with surprise and annoyance. "What's wrong?" my sister-in-law asked. "What's wrong?" I repeated incredulously. "You left me with your baby for an hour without asking me or telling me where you were going. You expected me just to babysit him while you had fun. That's what's wrong." They exchanged shocked glances. "We're sorry," her husband said. "We just wanted to catch up with everyone. We didn't think you would mind." "Well, I do mind," I said firmly. "I'm not your babysitter. I'm your sister-in-law. And I came here to enjoy myself, not to look after your kid." They mumbled some more apologies and excuses, but I didn't listen. I turned around and walked away from them, feeling proud of myself for standing up to them. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The next time I saw them, they had another baby, and they tried to do the same again. And so did other relatives who had kids on multiple occasions. It became a pattern. Every time there was a family event, someone would dump their kid on me and disappear. It didn't matter if they were my aunties, uncles, cousins, or in-laws. They all seemed to think that because I was an only child and because I didn't have kids of my own, that I would love to play nanny for them. They were wrong. I hated it. I hated being treated like a free service. I hated being ignored and taken for granted. I hated being stuck with kids who were noisy, messy, demanding, and sometimes rude. I hated missing out on the fun and the conversations that everyone else was having. I hated feeling like an outsider in my own family. So I stopped going. I stopped accepting their invitations. They didn't seem to notice or care either. They never asked me why I stopped coming. They never apologized for what they did. They never tried to make it up to me. They just moved on with their lives without me in family, party, and events. And so did I. I didn't stop seeing my family altogether. I still see them, just never in a party or family gathering situation. And they act like nothing ever happened and life goes on. I love hanging out with the family outside of the party and gathering situations, and, to be fair, the kids are great fun to be around, as long as I'm not expected to babysit them, which I never once said I was okay with, at any point. At the end of the day, we're all still family, and I think they got the message that I'm not their babysitter. They do now treat me with respect when I see them on the rare occasion for a visit, and maybe standing up for myself to people I care about and love was that reason. 2. Let me tell you about my nasty elderly neighbors. I moved in the summer of 2022. We share a landlord who told me not to let them into my life as they will try to take it over. They told me when I moved in, they cut the communal grass despite, in the same speech, telling me they have a divided garden, as they've been living there 20 years when the house is only 15 years old. That never happened, and they mentioned to me around Easter the lawn was overgrown, and denied saying they would cut it, despite them cutting other neighbors' lawns. I said I was working and would look into a gardener or mower, whatever was best. A week later they mention again, and I said I'm still looking as busy. Over the following few days I hear them in the front garden complaining about me, and to other neighbors about how I'm a bad neighbor, never clean, make noise, and my dog, a puppy I got just after moving in, which is another story. Eventually I went out and confronted them, and they got their son and daughter to threaten me and shout abuse, as they only ever heard their side, and then the neighbor reported me to their landlord for harassment. Even before that, in the first few weeks and months I moved in, I was queried whenever I went into my garden, told I wasn't allowed a dog in the garden, asked why my bins were so empty. I was taking things to recycling center direct, and foodstuffs to the bins on the street, as I didn't want rotting food and local foxes to get into the bins. Had many arguments since then, and each time they invite other neighbors into their home to have a talk about me, which means spread their lies, but when I confronted them and called them gossips, they claim it isn't true. Most recently, one was I was doing some DIY at the weekend, by which I mean I spent 2 minutes with a drill. Then, a few hours later, I attached something to a wall. When I went to put the item on the wall, I knocked over my toolbox, which crashed, and they were at the door screaming abuse, including homophobic slurs, as being single must mean I'm into the same gender, according to them, and remarks I never wash and clean. I am violent and aggressive, and the usual. Reported it to the rental agency, social housing by the way, who just said they won't get involved, and even said they were rightfully shocked by the noise, and me arguing back with neighbors meant I was just as in the wrong. Today I go to take my bins into my garden, and notice they have taken my spots and cable-tied their own bins, the ones they never use as their spares to my spots. 3. A few years ago, I worked in a fast food restaurant. One day, I brought dinner to a table at the restaurant's garden, where an older woman and her grandson were sitting. I had a short conversation with a woman about their order, and while we talked, the kid, who was around 4 or 5, reached for a cup where hot water was. He poured it all over himself and started crying and screaming. I went inside to get some towels. I didn't know it was the cup with hot water. I thought he took his drink, which was iced tea. When I got back, the child's mother was also there, trying to take off the son's clothes and screaming that she demanded compensation. She didn't even know exactly what happened. Her child was screaming in pain, and she could only think of the money she could get because of the situation. I was panicking and went back inside to tell the manager about the situation and to tell her to call an ambulance. She did. They arrived and took the child to hospital. But this is just the beginning. The mother was really hoping to get something from all of it, and decided to get it at all costs. Seeing her behavior when she screamed about compensation while her child was in such pain, I was really afraid that she would blame me for the whole incident. But I was lucky that the only camera in the garden recorded the whole thing perfectly in full HD, so there was no doubt that I wasn't the culprit. The problem was that the mother and grandmother of the child didn't pay enough attention to what he was doing. The mother wasn't aware that we had cameras, so she decided to straight up lie about what happened. First, she told the restaurant's manager that it was me who poured the hot water on her son, and that she witnessed it. But she was buying more food at the time it happened, and everyone could confirm that she wasn't in the garden. So she changed the story and said that I assured her that the water is cold. Yeah, for sure, I would tell her, who wasn't even at the table, that the cup with the huge note, "Caution, hot," had cold water inside again. When confronted with the fact that I couldn't tell her that because she wasn't there, she decided to make up another version, and told the manager that the cup had no lid. However, the footage from the security cameras showed otherwise. Then she said that she didn't order any hot drinks, but the receipt showed that she was lying again. The mother was furious that she didn't convince the manager that she and her son were the victims of fast food employees, but the story doesn't end there. The next day she showed up again, raging at the fact that no one from the restaurant called the hospital to ask about her son's health. How delusional she was to think that any doctor would tell a complete stranger details of his patient's health. She informed everyone that because of us, her son had a lot of second-degree burns. The main manager was in the restaurant that day, and he was already informed of the incident, so he knew who he was dealing with. The mother was cussing, screaming that he should fire me, and she will report it to the police and will take us to court. The manager warned us that maybe I and the other employees from that shift will have to go to the police station to testify. The woman even emailed corporate about the whole thing, but all the evidence was against her, and corporate's lawyers said that none of us should be afraid of any consequences, because it was clear that she will never be able to accuse us of hurting her child. I worked there only during holidays, so I stopped working around there a month after that, and returned the next holiday, and another one. It was 2 years after the incident when the manager told me that the mother recently had given up trying to get compensation, because every attempt was unsuccessful. The footage from the security cameras was enough to prove what happened, and none of the employees from that day were called to the police station nor court. The petty thing about the whole situation was this mother was so sure that she'd be able to get a lot of money with her lies. The main manager told me that they would willingly pay for the boy's treatment, but they decided not to after she said so many bad things about me and the other employees who had any contact with her before and during the incident. So she was left with nothing but hatred and medical bills. I'm only sorry for the boy who had to suffer so much, and his mother probably didn't even really care, especially that she wasn't able to make any profit off of it. 4. I'm a 31-year-old woman. I've been working in haunts since 2019. It's a job I look forward to working every year. Between the chance to make people scream, pee, laugh, or generally freak out without repercussion, it's a good time, and I still have the chance to put some of my safety training to use. For example, if you're 1 foot in the door and sobbing, you're clearly not having fun, and you are a risk to yourself and others, so it was part of my job to pull you aside while my room 2 partner, a 29-year-old woman, entertains the rest of the group. I break character, calm you down, and explain that 1, everyone here is an actor and nothing can hurt you, and 2, there is no shame if you can't move forward, because we want you to have fun. We offer you the chance to stay or go, and ask if you would like a member of staff to wait with you if all of your friends are going ahead, so that you're not standing outside alone. Of course, for safety's sake, we have several rules. No children under the age of 10, no drugs or alcohol, no cursing or foul language. Obviously, if you get freaked out and drop an F-bomb, that's different from cussing out and abusing actors. We know that. You know, basic, we have minors who work here, please don't be dicks rules. One rule we have, the one that gets constantly ignored and is possibly the most dangerous, is to not touch things. We have fragile props and electrical equipment that you could break or hurt yourself on. Also, the actors are people and you could hurt them as well, and we, since we don't want the liability, can't touch you. For the most part, it's a good system. However, we do get the occasional freak-out punch thrown our way, and we have codes in the haunt to hold our guests in one room, to give management time to make sure any laid-out actors don't need medical assistance. All this set up to say, the job's a lot of fun, but it does come with some potentially high stakes physically, mentally, and emotionally. However, because they know this, management has essentially given us a blank check to call them to remove guests who are behaving poorly. In any case, last night was the final night for haunting for the season. It started more or less as normal. My partner and I were bobbing right along, sending people through, warning the people who needed to be warned, etc. Overall, a pretty reasonable, calm night. Until everything devolved into chaos. It started with a group of teens, mixed boys and girls, probably between the ages of 13 to 15. The only thing we noted about them was another girl came in a little belatedly, then went back out to come in with her mother and another girl her age. Didn't think much of it, sent them on their way, then brought in the next group. The mother in the next group was, surprise, surprise, our Karen for the evening. She didn't look like much, and right up until she decided to touch one of our props with her umbrella — it was raining, there was no coat check, so she got to bring it in — she didn't act like she was going to be a problem. But because she was touching things, she got the same dressing down that everyone's got by my partner. The character has a hot head, and she yells at you for rule violations. It's part of the act, and the best way to get people to listen and follow the rules. Usually. However, Karen decided to push her luck by walking over to my partner and putting her umbrella against my partner's collarbone. My partner yelled at her not to touch her, because of course she did. And Karen looked absolutely livid, spitting out a disgusted, "Are you serious?" When she was told yes, that this wasn't a bit, and that her behavior was unacceptable, she started to storm out, taking the girls with her. My partner and I followed. After all, we assumed she misunderstood. We attempted to explain that she could go through, she just couldn't go around touching things, or people. Now, a bit more background. Room 1 is a bit more like a long, double S-curve hallway. It's got corners you go around, and there are places for actors to stand, sit, crouch, whatever. But it's narrow. 2 people might be able to walk side by side, but they'd have to be pretty little. I'm personally a pretty thick woman. Not gonna get into details, but that's just the honest truth. If I stand correctly, I can easily fill that whole walking path. My partner is also decent-sized, though not as large as me. The Karen in question is about my partner's size, but almost a whole foot shorter than me, so she's barely scraping 5 feet tall. 1.52 meters for my non-American friends. Suffice to say, there wasn't a lot of room, but in spite of us being 3 larger people, I had space to step back and let her through. However, as she huffed around to prepare to go by me and go back into the haunt, she'd made it back to the front door by the time she'd actually slowed down enough to listen to us. She raised both arms and body-checked me into the wall, a purposeful, passive-aggressive shove. And I screamed. I raised my volume as high as it would go, told her not to touch me and that she needed to get out right now. Karen looked at me in shock as if I was out of my damn mind. How dare I speak to her like that? How could anyone be so rude to her in front of her children? But my partner backed me up, and the Karen left with a quickness, taking her children with her, just in time for us to get a code red rum from upstairs. Red rum from our haunt means that a guest has become violent and punched one of our actors. I found out later that the group of teens associated with the lady pushed one of our minor actors to the ground and punched her in the face. Now this actor, this girl, was already nervous to be there, partially because of the acting, partially because the house is actually haunted. Whether you believe in that or not, it can get freaky. So I can only imagine how she feels right now. Hopefully I'll see her next week and make sure she's okay. While my partner went to check on the injury, I did a little damage control outside with the line, thanking our guests for their patience and asking them to continue as such because of the emergency. In spite of the cold and wet, most were happy to wait so we could make sure our actor was safe. So what happened with Karen? First she went to our ticket taker to complain. Our ticket taker, bless her, called one of our 2 owners over to talk to her. Of course she lied after my partner got her side of the story out, saying she never touched her. that all she touched was the skull on the desk, but she slipped up and admitted that she just rested the umbrella against her chest, and that was enough for our manager to call her out on her lie. She also came back later and tried to complain to one of our maintenance men, saying we, my partner and I, were rude to her. Like our ticket taker, he called one of the owners. Shocker, she got the same owner who essentially told her, "I'll talk to you, but let's take a walk." Apparently her youngest daughter also called the maintenance man a dick during this whole process, so Karens beget Karens, unfortunately. No police were called, but my partner and I are split about what kind of future we wish for her. I hope she has a coming to Jesus moment where she realizes she's being a jerk and turns her life around. My partner hopes that she suffers a lifetime of watching everyone else around her get everything they ever wanted, while she gets left behind. Either way, the rest of the night was fine, and I'm already looking forward to next year. P.S. The girl who got punched is okay. She is looking forward to next year, but wants us to teach her a little self-defense. I'd call that an absolute win. 5. First off, I am homeless. I call myself a hobo. I have a job, and I am working my way out of it. I usually go around town on my off time from work, going through parks, talking to other homeless people, shooting video, getting their stories, and posting about various events such as abandoned camps or evicted camp stuff like that. You can find that on my YouTube channel, which will be linked in the description next to this story. I was out most of the day doing that, and I started to get hungry. I was in one of the forest parks around my city, in one of the parking lots by a rock. I put my very large bag on the ground and got out my cooking pot and my portable stove, and popped open a can of beefaroni. Okay, 2 cans. I set up and started to cook. I was there maybe 5 minutes. Things were starting to get warm when this woman walked over to me and just started yammering that I couldn't be doing that here. I stood up and she's pointing her finger saying, "You can't be doing that here." I was just trying to make something to eat. At the moment, yes, I don't look fantastic. I wear an old hoodie when I'm walking around the woods and visiting the camps to make the other hobos feel more comfortable. It would freak them out if I came and said, "I'm like you guys, let's have a talk," if I were dressed in a suit and tie, you know? She told me that people like myself make this area dangerous. Honestly, I'm not a danger. I'm just a regular dude down on his luck. She called for me to leave, and I said, "Hey, I'm just trying to make myself lunch. Step off. I'm not doing anything wrong." She kicked my beefaroni over. I wanted to blow up. I wanted to throw words around. But I bit my tongue and said, "Fine, lady, piss off. I'm leaving. Thank you for ruining my only lunch." Now, people might wonder why I didn't do more, and honestly, I'm homeless. I can't. If I start up a scene, if I fight back or argue, I lose. The police are usually pretty brutal against us homeless, even if we're in the right. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that story. Don't worry, I packed up, went back to where my camp is, and I had a couple of extra cans of beefaroni that I got from dumpster diving. There's nothing wrong with them. The cans were just bent. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 141. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button. And if you'd like to get early access to the content, then you can support me on my Patreon for as little as $1 or more if you'd like a month. I will not try to stop you paying more than $1. And you can also get yourself some Hellfreezer merchandise on the Teespring store. Both of these are linked in the description there. And you can make donations during streams or videos like this one. That's the little heart button that has a $ sign in it. You don't have to, but I do appreciate it, and it helps keep the wolves from the door, because you guys have been wonderful to me. Most of you I'll probably never meet, but I appreciate every one of you. Alright, I apologize if you can hear any booms in the background. I'm trying to pause whenever I can, but it's Saturday the 4th, day before Guy Fawkes night, bonfire night, and, people are going hog wild with the fireworks. Can't really grumble, as these are the 2 nights when you usually expect it. It's also the night I happen to be recording. And before we move on to the question of the day, I'd just like to thank the author of the last story there. That's the YouTube channel is Extra Cheesy Broccoli. I did mention at the start of the story. Go along, take a look. The videos run anywhere from about 1.5 to about 5-ish minutes long. And just, a vlog style. Events about his life, shining a light on the things he's experienced. Let's see, what have we got? The most recent, which was 4 hours ago as of recording, was showing some sleeping spots in homeless camps. And picking one at random, police came in last night and destroyed a bunch of camps. That was 5 days ago. That's not a very nice thing to do, is it? And hobo cooking, hobo stew. It's made out of hobos. Okay, so why don't you guys head along, take a look, and you might find something you enjoy. Okay, I think that's all the business for today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... this one comes from my new and also old moderator, Bellamy Fox. That's a joke that I realized only they and I will get. Never mind, moving on. It's if you could fight any horror villain, who and why? Well, I would like to fight Freddy Krueger, because I don't like him. And I would like to beat him with hummus. It's dreams, so I can make the hummus very powerful. Possibly I'd also beat him with a huge cucumber as some sort of vegan baseball bat. Anyway, that's my answer, so let me know what you think in a comment below. I look forward to reading yours. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.